Hello, JP the Third here. And before we begin this video, I just wanted to do a quick advertisement for our live streams. If you were wondering where the live streams were for YouTube, we are not live streaming on YouTube anymore. They have been moved to Twitch. And as you can see, our schedule is completely stacked. Every Tuesday, we're doing Dreamfall Chapters, a very good episodic game from Red Thread Games. It has a rather complicated lore and backstory. It's taking place over 20 years, more or less. The first game was released in the 90s or so. But I'm playing that every Tuesday at 8 o'clock. On Thursdays, I've been playing This Floor's Just Desserts, and it's been driving chat wild. We have been having a lot of fun snarking at this game. Not sure how much longer it will continue, but once that changes, I'll change the schedule. Until then, drop by on Thursday to have a good time. And my first ever Tales of game, the first time I've ever played a Tales of game, Tales of Zestiria, is happening Saturdays at 7 o'clock, all times are Eastern. If you want to have a good time, come on by. The place to be is twitch.tv at jptertian. A link is in the description box below, and I look forward to seeing you there. Now, on to the video. Hello everyone, JP the Third, VMsNow.com, and I am bringing you Vengeful Heart. I have been hearing a lot of good things about this demo. The style just appeases me already. It appeals to me on an incredible level. Anybody who knows me knows that I'm a sucker for the aesthetic of the 90s, 80s, 90s computer games, and I'm just looking forward to it already. It's from a group called Ladybug Studios, and I have read that it is fairly long. I'm not sure what we're going to get involved into with this one quite yet, but I am looking forward to it. If you're interested in the demo or any information about the game, links about it and information about it is in the description box. Please check them out, and let's see what this game has in store for us. I will say, rather quiet. I do have the music all the way up. I'm not sure. Yeah, the music just isn't playing yet. If this game doesn't have any music attached to it, we'll deal with it. But right now, we have to assume that the soundtrack will be playing at some point. Josephine Lace was late for work. Cursing, she shot out of bed like a supersonic plane and stumbled into the bathroom. Her apartment was small, with just enough room for a bed, a table, and a screen. The house was pretty old, so most functions only worked through an interface in the wall. Lights, heating, and the alarm she should have had. The screen was newish and large enough to nearly cover the wall it was on. In the bathroom, there was a separate panel that dealt with her water supply and her laundromat. She'd been thinking about getting one of those roofs that portrayed a starry sky on request, but they were so expensive. Maybe when she got a raise. She managed to slam herself pretty hard against the bathroom wall. Damn, the floor was slippery. Maybe she should slow down. I mean, I understand she's late for work, but at the same time, she opened the plastic panel and ordered soap and shampoo. Of all the days, she thought. Soap began to pour out of the ceiling, and she rubbed it around her body. Halfway through, she realized she was still wearing her pajama pants and cursed again. It would be great if we got a visual of this, I'm just saying. Not the naked part, just her just kind of, the pants is getting tossed out the shower. Because what the hell, I'm wearing my shower pants. But who among us haven't made that mistake? Just as she got them off, she realized she was still wearing her wristwatch. She threw it across the apartment onto the bed just in time for the shampoo to fall from the ceiling. Closing her eyes, she focused on rubbing the shampoo. She had to look presentable today. She was going to meet Francis. With her eyes still closed, she turned her face up to meet the cleansing pour of water about to come. And waited. A loud beep announced to her that something was wrong. She opened one eye very carefully and inspected the small screen. Error. Water cannot be delivered. Please contact water supplier. What the fuck? Fucking company. Someone had to screw up on the worst possible day. Then she got shampoo in her eye. Like, this day is just going from bad to worse, right? Every possible thing that could go wrong within the first 30 minutes of the day have happened. Fuck. She had no time to contact anyone. Still had blind, she grasped for a towel and wiped off all the soap and most of the shampoo. She thought about her options. If she had more time, she could have stopped at a gym or swimming hall, but she didn't, and those were places where people went to get their clothes stolen. There was no one else she would ask to use Mr. Kendrick's shower. Not that the old man wasn't perfectly nice, she just didn't know how to speak to old people. I'm just going to assume that's the same as any other person, but you do you, Josephine. She knew nothing about her neighbors across the hall, except that the sign on the door said Janice. The only real option was to rush to work, shower there, and do her best with makeup. Why did this have to happen on her biggest day yet? Maybe that's just how things go. There's the music. Pressing another button, she opened the thin metal curtain that gave her the slightest respite from the neon storm that was the polis and embraced the view. Poils. Adjust the volume just a little bit here. There we go. You guys get to see all the behind the scenes stuff. The sun was still rising, so she had a chance to admire the constant cacophony of messages trying to get her attention. She'd seen them so many times she no longer noticed them, yet she knew that if even one of the signs went out, she would notice instantly. She turned her gaze to admire the pulsing rainbow that was a net of water pipes running above street levels. No other city had this feature. She slipped her fancy suit, packed a bag of makeup and a few nutrition bars. No time to cook. She almost forgot her ID. The block she lived in was a gray square of concrete and steel that anyone would consider ugly as hell. But not Josephine. She liked practical things, and her house was that. There was a small courtyard and apartments around it. 4 different doorways led to 4 different streets. There were 8 floors and 4 sections. Every apartment was identical. She was lucky to have one all for herself. She liked the courtyard. It was small and nothing grew on it, but it was at least calm. In the summer, the program running the house deployed a massive shade umbrella that kept much of the apartments pleasantly cool. There was electric air conditioning, of course, but it didn't always work. In the hallway, she ran into Mr. Kendrick. The old man was wearing his morning robe and standing about deeply unsettled as if something was deeply wrong. Miss Lace, can you help me? My apartment doesn't work. What's wrong with your home, Mr. Kendrick? Well, you see, this morning yeah, we're gonna have to, one more adjustment. Preferences. Up that text speed. Well, you see, this morning I woke to the sound of the traffic full 15 minutes earlier than usual. Mr. Kendrick, please, I'm late for work. Oh, I'm sorry. As I was saying, I was reading the paper and then slept for some more. Mr. Kendrick, to the chase, please. What is the matter with your home? Oh, yes. You see, when I woke up, I tried to shower, but there was no water. I couldn't even make coffee. So I came out to see if someone would know about the pipes. Don't you work with pipes, miss? Not really, Mr. Kendrick. Don't worry, I'm sure they'll fix it soon enough. Alright. Oh, one more thing, Miss Lace. Could you please help me with... I have to run now. I'm terribly sorry, Mr. Kendrick. Ask someone else. Ask Mr. Janice. Who's Mr. Janice? Oh, a young woman came down the hall, looking amused. She was a bit shorter than Josephine, but clearly worked out more. Josephine felt a sting of guilt as she tried to remember the last time she'd gone jogging. The young woman had short hair, rough hands, and durable clothes that had military background written all over them. She seemed simultaneously relaxed and tense. Her body couldn't have been calmer as she walked along the hallway, but her eyes were constantly scouting wildly. The most memorable feature, however, was an amused smile that never left her face, as if there was something inherently funny in everything and everybody. I take it you're Miss Janice. Call me Ronnie. What's the fuss? You see, I woke up to the sound of traffic. Water isn't coming. Look, Mr. Kendrick, I need to run now. I have a meeting. And Josephine rushed to the elevator and closed the doors. Some meeting. Miss Janice, please. I locked myself out of my home. Oh, I guess that's my problem now. Would you like a cup of tea? So far, it's pretty amusing. Josephine closed her eyes as the elevator descended. She found the electric hum seasoning. Her stomach grumbled. She hoped there would be time to get a bite. Outside, she took a deep breath of city air and filled her lungs with the smell of exhaust pipes and greasy street meals. It was still rush hour. She joined the high tide of people flooding the streets and flowing towards the trams. Trains. Was that trams or trains? Trams. I got it right. Usually she tried to get up early and miss the endless ocean of grumpy, tired, busy people operating on their first cup of coffee. Today she was somewhat glad there were so many people. No one had time or energy to focus on her. No one would see her still shampooed hair or her yesterday's clothes. Amid the sea of people, she was invisible. She stepped into a pond. Cold, filthy water instantly made it through her shoes and socks, chilling her toes. Crap! A trickle of water fell on her head. She looked up. There was a water pipe above her. It was leaking badly. The pipe was pretty high and she couldn't make up the company name, but she knew it was Nephthys. Nephthys? One or the other. The colors had been Francis's idea. Water pipes in the city had long ago been rebuilt to run high above the streets. It was too easy to drill and steal from the underground pipes. But the black metal tubes running in rows above all the major streets weren't very pretty to look at. Francis had come up with the idea to replace them with transparent plastic. Then he added glowing chemicals to the water so that as it flowed, it pulled vibrant colors. Brand approval had skyrocketed, and the claims of health hazards were tenuous at best. Now the pipes were a trademark of the city that no one would want to take down. Francis was a genius. And the pipes were everywhere. It was impossible not to see them. For the last few years, the entire city had lived in the glow of pulsing neon lights, safe from rain under the blanket of pipes. That had led to some interesting incidents. For one, advertisers had complained that people could no longer see their ads. The solution had been devilishly simple. For a price, Nephthys installed a device that turned off the glow on certain sections, giving people a better look at the huge ad overboards. Excuse me. Last year, it had been decided that the city would no longer maintain streetlights. Why would it? Nephthys was fighting the city anyway and asked only for a modest compensation. Everybody won. Suddenly, she noticed that someone was standing next to her. It was an old woman, clearly too poor to have an apartment in this district. She was holding a plastic container. You shouldn't steal. The old woman shrugged. Josephine didn't have time to argue. She continued towards the station. The old woman wasn't alone. There were at least half a dozen others with bottles or pots. The police were show up soon, and it was smarter not to be around when they did. The tram station was actually two stations. There was a subway leading downtown and a tram leading uptown. Josephine was one of the millions who worked upper than they could afford to live. She went in line to the trams. The train had a security checkpoint. The subway didn't. She didn't have to stand in line for long. There was at least 20 machines, and it took less than a second to identify a passenger. That makes sense. Even the checkpoint part. There was also at least 10 security guards. Josephine nodded to the closest one, but said nothing. Something about the security industry attracted men who despised educated, well-paid women. Wow. They went there. Josephine showed her ID to the machine and then looked straight into the camera. Josephine Lace, hydraulic engineer, Nephthys Inc., clear for passage, said a metallic but pleasant voice. A green light flashed and the doorway opened. Josephine ran for the platform. As usual, the tram was absolutely packed with frowning people. Very few spoke at all. Guards were pushing people in to fit as many as possible. Josephine quickly slipped her wallet under her shirt and grabbed her watch with both hands. Pickpockets loved the tram. Not the kind of pickpockets that are seen in movies, rugged poor people with quick fingers. You needed to have a reason to go uptown. These were neatly dressed half-time pickpockets. She lost 2 watches before she learned to be careful, though pickpockets overwhelmingly favored tourists. There was just something about non-locals, especially countrysiders, that made them an obvious target. The tram shot forward with rush hour speed, and Josephine would have fallen if there had been space to do that. The neon lights and towering buildings flashed by with great speed. The only constant was the glowing water pipe running along the tram route. It was foggy again. Josephine checked the air quality on her watch. She should have been wearing a mask today. The air was not good. It would be better at the other end. The tram route rose at a steep angle. There were pipes above that one could grab. Josephine wasn't that dumb. Grabbing the pipe meant lowering your guard, which meant someone would steal your stuff. She would have to maintain her balance. At every station, the route leveled for a while so people could get out, and a new batch could come on board. And this is not Glitch City, man. This is clearly a rough town. It's not Glitch City. It's not Mute City. And if you understand either of those references, you're a friend of mine. Josephine couldn't help but feel a little superior to the people who stayed out before her. She worked at the very center, almost as up as one could get. But I mean, you may work a little bit further than the people getting off, but you're still living in one of the poorest sections of town. Let's not get too high on the horse. The tram was still full when Josephine got out. She instantly noticed how the air was different up here. The air didn't smell and there was no fog. Instead, the rising sun shone brightly on the white and glass buildings. This reminds me of Appleseed. Appleseed, a little bit of Ghost in the Shell there. I mean, any Japanese anime, any Japanese cyberpunk anime from the 80s or 90s really could fit this bill pretty well. But definitely strong Appleseed vibes here. So I need to look up the game later, because I didn't look up too much information and just see. I looked up just enough to kind of get a feel, but not enough to know if they had any inspiration from Appleseed. But I'd be interested to know. Even the water pipes had stopped glowing. Up here, the water was clear. She didn't have time to ponder on it. She bolted and ran as fast as she could. Down where she lived, which was still comfortably around the middle, the streets were crowded and narrow. Up here, there was only plazas and huge monumental buildings. The gardens were one of the biggest. It was impossible to miss them. The headquarters of Neftis Inc. was not just a cold giant clad in steel and glass. They were lush. The gardens were called that because of the myriad terraces that were green with plant life of all sorts. Trees, bushes, and vines covered its outer walls. Between the terraces, thin screens of water fell from one level to the next, giving some privacy to the people working within. The building itself was like a pyramid of huge steps. The higher your elevator took you, the smaller the floor, the more exclusive. Today, Josephine would have to get to the top for the first time, and she had shampoo in her hair. The gardens were surrounded by a plaza where more trees and bushes stood on the artificial ground, fed by artificial little streams. The streams crisscrossed the plaza in a seemingly random pattern, combined into small ponds and separating again. Josephine was in a hurry, so she didn't follow the winding path around the fake garden. She hopped over the ponds and ran across the line, raising eyebrows amongst the security guarding the entrance. The guards said nothing but raised their eyebrows as a sweaty and gasping Josephine arrived at the machine, and it cleared her. Her heart was pounding like hell. I really should work out more, she thought. Inside was calm. People were either in their offices or hadn't showed up yet. Good. Perhaps no one would see her. There was a shower attached to the gym. Josephine liked working at a place where there was a gym just for the employees. There was a certain prestige to it. Not that she ever had time to use it. She looked at her watch. 9 minutes. It might be enough. There was no one else to use the elevator. Good. The gym was on the 4th floor. She stood there anxiously as the elevator rose slowly. She had a hard time standing still. She saw herself in the mirror. The shampoo had now dried on her hair, forming a white net of sorts. Her cheeks were red from running and her eyes still black from a nearly sleepless night. She'd been having those recently. Her nose was leaking like the water pipe on her home street. This bad day is just getting worse and worse and worse. Alright, this poor girl. On the 2nd floor, the elevator stopped. She quickly adjusted her pose to be casual. Everyone had days like this. It wasn't anyone's business. The doors opened and a young man walked in. Josephine froze. It was Francis. Look at this asshole. Oh, wow. A busy morning, Miss Lace? No, sir. I mean, yes, but nothing unusual. Just ran my morning rounds. I'm going to shower now. Exercise before work is so refreshing. I go swimming every morning. Do you swim? Not very well, I'm afraid. I'm more of a sunbather. I don't blame you. Seawater is refreshing. I hope your presentation is ready. Yes, sir. I'll pop by my office to pick up the slides. You might want to hurry. It seems you have 6 minutes. Josephine was horrified. She wouldn't make it. Not doing a shower, getting dressed, putting on makeup, and going by her office. Francis laughed. Worry not, Miss Lace. I'll go by your office and stall the meeting. Where are the slides? Thank you so much, sir. I left them on a drive at my desk. I'll be there on time. Thanks again so much. No trouble at all. You just get ready. Josephine, this is your floor. The lady Cheryl to the right. Francis was right. They were on the 4th floor. She rushed out, thanking him again and blushing red at the traffic light. Oh, Miss Lace. Josephine turned around, more or less dying of embarrassment. Yes? You might want to wear sports clothes when you run. You'll be much more comfortable. Thank you, sir. The door closed before she finished, leaving her standing alone in the hallway. She made a complete fool of herself. Oh man, this poor girl. Why today? I mean, just from my site mascot alone, I have an affinity for dark-skinned, light-haired girls. So it's just like, I can't help but feel for Josephine. As she finally showered, she couldn't stop thinking about Francis. Francis Brabeck was a celebrity among businessmen. He was young, he was ambitious, and he seemingly never made mistakes. In just 6 years, he made Nephthys the largest water provider in the world. By all accounts, he should have been a huge dick. And yet here he was, a billionaire boss offering to help a subordinate out of sheer goodwill, at the cost of working time. And damn, he was handsome. Josephine dried herself and got dressed. She didn't have time to dry her hair. She hastily put on some makeup in the elevator. She was late. There was a security check in the elevator before anyone could get to the highest floor. Josephine's ID had been temporarily updated to allow access. Like, usually I put a pin in it here. But we gotta see how this meeting actually goes. Like, I need to see how this ends. She arrived 2 minutes late, but no one seemed to mind. She realized they were the kind of people who were never in a hurry. They knew others would wait. The men and women in the room, all wearing neat suits, were chatting and having coffee. Francis were among them, clearly mid-joke. Ah, Miss Lace. Good, you've arrived. It's time to start, I think. Francis gestured for Josephine, to sit on the empty chair next to him. The meeting room was the highest point in the gardens, and one of the highest in the city. The room was oval, with a balcony circling around it. All the walls were clear glass. I will say there was a lot of descriptive text, just a lot of descriptive text. They could probably cut down on some of it. Some of it is necessary because the backgrounds aren't highly detailed. So, like, some of the things about the city and the background information is good. But, I don't know. We'll see how bad it gets, if it gets any worse than this. A sheet of falling water, the highest of the waterfalls in the garden, circumvented the room, slowly disappearing in one section while appearing in the next. All of it was quite hypnotic, but the most spectacular part was the view. From here, Josephine could see the golden domes of the city halls, the luxurious Mansa Musa finance towers, even the great HQ of Sentinel Security. Everything bathed in the rays of early morning. She was so high up now that frost formed on the edges of the window. Far below, she could see swarms of people filling the plazas, each of them rushing to work in one of the magnificent works of architecture. There were helicopters in the sky, whisking the wealthiest straight from the penthouse to the office. In the center of town, there weren't even commercials. Everything was pure. Francis' voice snapped back to the office. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Josephine Lace. Ms. Lace is one of our foremost hydraulic engineers. Josephine smiled and nodded to the audience of 24 business sharks. All of them looked friendly, but in a way a carnivorous plant might look beautiful. Their eyes only ever saw dollars. Josephine is going to explain our new discoveries regarding groundwater. But before that, let's take a step back. I want to ask you, what is the greatest weapon a dictator can possess? The room was both baffled and annoyed. Clearly political theory was not worth the time of these people. The obvious answer would be nukes, or gas, or some other horrific contraption. But I would argue the mightiest weapon a tyrant can have is control of water. More confused faces, including Josephine's. Throughout history, and especially now, being able to decide who gets to drink, who gets to wash, who gets to water their crops, is absolute power. Starvation and disease can subdue populations far more effectively than bombs. In times past, this meant filling up wells, damming rivers, destroying irrigation. Today, all one has to do is press a button. Now, I ask you, is that a power you want the state to have? Some in the audience began nodding approvingly. Me neither. It's the great task of our generation to liberate water from the control of governments. Water is a human right. The only way to protect the people from abuse is to take the water in the hands of the people. Fortunately, we live in a democracy, and our leaders understand that it is their responsibility to give up this power for everyone's sake. Which is why, starting yesterday, Nephthys will begin the process of transferring control of the groundwater from the state to the people. And who can distribute the water more efficiently to everyone than those who are already doing it. He doesn't sound like the best of guys, but I'm following him so far. Well, no one. The shareholders gave long applause for their young prophet. Clearly, they were very happy with this particular brand of political theory. Francis calmed them down. Of course, there will be some initial costs. Fortunately, we will soon be responsible for far more water than you might realize. Josephine, please. Now, here's what I like about this. The narrative so far, just to set up. This makes total sense. Like in Blade Runner 2049, which if you haven't seen, what the hell is wrong with you? The richest man, the richest man who took over from the last richest man, like the first richest man in the series, Tyrell, in the original Blade Runner, he was responsible for producing the labor force, which were robots. In 2049, the new richest man in the world was responsible for producing food. So it makes sense in these cyberpunk worlds that whoever has the most power is the one who can get like the basic human needs in a cyberpunk situation. So it's food, it's labor, it's water. It's not like the heavily commercialized stuff. It's not that. So that I like. So whoever the writer is on this really got that much down about the genre. So kudos on that much. Josephine stood up and nodded to the audience. Her graph appeared on one of the windows. Thank you, Francis. I mean, Mr. Brabeck. Now, as you can see here, the presentation wasn't long. Josephine delivered a very concise record of all the things to consider with the new water resources. The highest cost was real estate. Land in the city was incredibly expensive, yet it was most efficient to drill there. A new central water supply would also be needed. A building that would be drilling station. A building that would be drilling station, purification plant, a bottling station, and the starting point of all the new pipes. She knew it sounded boring, but she couldn't mask her excitement over it. How the city got its water would be changed forever, and she'd be the one designing it. When she'd been given a task a year ago, it seemed impossible. She wasn't even 30 yet. How was she in charge? But she had pulled it off. No one could take that pride from her, even though no one else in the world probably cared. The board for one seemed only interested in the last section, which wasn't even Josephine's work, but a cost-benefit analysis from someone in finances. They were happy enough to applaud her as well. As the audience was leaving, satisfied that their money was being used adequately well, Francis approached her. Well done, Josephine. Few people could have kept their cool when meeting people this important. Josephine felt her cheeks burning a bit. Thank you, Mr. Brabeck. I thought it was a bit dry. It could have used some jokes. And how many jokes are there to be made about plumbing? Not very many. But still, I couldn't captivate them the way you do. Captivating investors is what I do for a living, but you have no reason to feel bad. What you're doing is revolutionary in our field. Within a couple of months, everyone in the city, millions of people, will get their every glass of water from your pipes. I know that. That's what bothers me. Our work is going to change the city forever. Erase dirty drinking water. Get everyone access. They didn't seem to realize it. Investors, at least all the good ones, have a calculator for ears, brains, and hearts. The only thing they see is the money they'll make. I could speak of liberal ethics all day, and they could only hear numbers. Instead of art, they see price tags. Instead of food calories to fuel the calculator. Instead of food calories to fuel. I don't know if that was a mistake or not, but just the way I'm reading it's maybe a little bit off. Instead of food calories to fuel the calculator. You make them sound like robots, and they might hear you. Nah, they already left. And I mean it as a compliment of sorts. They're the best at what they do. What they do is best suited for robots. You speak like you have nothing in common with them, Mr. I have a degree in finance. Corpus slave or not, I can still enjoy a good meal. Speaking of which, would you like to have dinner sometime? Oh dear, was Francis asking her out? And how was this going so well for her? Yes, I would love to. Something ridiculously expensive and low on nutrients. So we can see if we are still more than machines. I like it. How about the day after tomorrow? Sure. I mean, I have to check. Of course. My secretary will be in touch. Can I have my chauffeur? Chauffeur. Wow, how did I butcher that? Can I have my chauffeur pick you up? That sounds very nice. I'll see you then. How did I butcher chauffeur? Wow. She left the room in a hurry before she would embarrass herself and ruin this. Francis had asked her out. She hoped the secretary wouldn't spread the news. Half the women in the office would hate her immediately. The rest of the day flew by in a heartbeat. In fact, time flew by so quickly, Josephine found herself working almost an hour later than she was supposed to. Of course, there was plenty of work to do. The expansion had to be planned and miles of new pipes had to be built. As the clock struck 6, she suddenly realized how hungry she was. She hadn't eaten anything after her very abrupt breakfast. She ordered food to the office and kept working until dark. By the time she left, there was no one left in the office. She took the subway home. The tram uptown was already closed. The upper district's need for cheap labor had been satisfied, and now it was time for the plebeians, Excuse me. Now that I know how to pronounce, I don't know what the hell is wrong with me. The plebeians to leave. Normally she hated the subway. They were dirtier and noisier, and there was no security. From her seat, she could see the gardens rising above most of the city. To think she had been on the top of that building just hours ago. The waterfalls around the tower reflected back the lights of the city like a vertical lake. She could see the reflections of surrounding buildings. It was like a mirror that made everything seem more beautiful than it was. Josephine squinted her eyes. She was almost certain she could still see the silhouette of a man in the highest room, surrounded by a halo of neon light. Was Francis still working? The subway dove into the tunnel before she could be sure. Now she was suddenly filled with deep dissatisfaction. Francis wouldn't have to travel down for the night. He would just stroll across the plaza to the luxury hotel where he permanently lived. Before that, he might catch dinner with all those investors from the meeting at some local restaurant. And in the morning, he would take the elevator back to the top, stopping only for his morning swim. What should have been a pleasant trip home suddenly felt like falling into the deepest abyss on the planet. She had been to the top. She knew she wanted back. She felt her break was close. She was about to design the new water network. She was going on a date with her boss. In the crystal ball that was a subway window, she saw a promotion in the near future. She had been dealt a good hand. Now she had to play it well. Alright, we'll put a pin in it here. And when we come back, we will dive right back into the rest of her day. I can only imagine. I mean, from the worst day ever to the best day ever. We'll see where it picks up from there. Leave a like if you're enjoying the series so far. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so. Yes, I know that we haven't stretched it out. These are the dimensions of the game, and we're sticking to it because stretched out looks weird. And it's VNS.com. That is VNS.com for more visual novel content and commentary. I'll see you guys in the next one.